$300,000 up for grabs. And as simple as best ball is, Drafters makes it even simpler. Draft your team, score the most points, and win all the money. That is what myself, Erik Beimfohr, and Rob Coakley are going to set out to do tonight on Monday Night Best Ball here for Spike Week. Score a whole lot of points with the team on Drafters. Let's do it.
3, 2, 1, liftoff.
All right, Rob, I'm very excited to be.
I was just sitting there and I was like, I should probably hit the intro button for him. And I was like, nah, I'll just let him fumble his way through it.
I got this shitty the shitty mouse over here. I clicked the button like 3 times, and that is the worst. That is one of the, there's a couple terrible feelings. This is people, first world problems, things people don't care about. Like when you're streaming or whatever, and it's like, so it's all tied to the internet, right? The like intro, outro, all that kind of stuff. And like you click that to end your stream or whatever. And it's just like, it's got this, and you're just like, you're just like looking, in the camera, like, and we'll see you guys next week, and you're doing this, Superman, and it's like, pose. It's like, please God, please end,
just let it,
or whatever.
Just let
and
it
that was not that. Obviously, that was human error, but it was me. I'm like, intro. I would have helped, but yeah,
I was holding this.
Yeah, exactly. You have far more important things than me with a faulty mouse. But I'm excited. But I feel like, well, I'm a little tired because we just recorded, myself and Pat Corrine, another marathon episode of Legendary Sickos. So forgive me if my brain is a little bit mush. But I'm excited, honestly, for this month. I posted about it on Twitter that I'm kind of calling August month Drafters month on here at Spike Week. And I say that sort of in jest, but also because I don't know if you've seen what's going on over there in their $20. Obviously, you did a draft yesterday on the Sicko Sundays, but this thing is not going to fill, man. And like, I actually talked about this at the very end with Corrine on the what we just recorded, where we are in such a good time as best ball players and drafters that the competition and like, it's kind of like early days of DFS, right? And a little bit of like the sports betting space and stuff, where the competition and the fact that this industry is really booming is great for us. And I love the people at Drafters, and I really enjoy the product that they have put together. And I like that it's different from a cumulative scoring and full PPR and 20 rounds. But for us as players, these are the things that we want to be taking advantage of. This Drafters tournament is $300,000 to first place. Everyone complains about a lot of the top heavy payout structures, like we see a lot of times on DraftKings, sometimes on Underdog. I mean, BBM and some of the high dollar stuff on DraftKings is really top heavy. This tournament is $20. The Drafters NFL Best Ball Championship is $20 to enter a team, right? And it is, hold on, I'm trying to share my screen to make it a little easier. It is a really flat payout structure. Like 300 to first, and look all the way down. Like you finish top 100, you win $1,000. That's awesome. Like that, the structure that they put together here is absolutely amazing. I'm also tracking this. We got a couple more, so we can talk for just a second before it fills. But the contest structure that they have put together here in their $20. I mean, all of their tournaments are fairly similar, but this one in particular is a great structure. The cumulative scoring aspect, I think, is really good certainly for beginners, but for really anybody as a little bit of a pivot away from the kind of playoff gauntlet that we have to deal with on Underdog and on DraftKings. And most importantly for players, for us, you see, we are a month away from the NFL season starting. And on your screen, this has 22,479 entrants into this tournament and the total max entries is 111. That we're 90,000 short of this thing. That is an astronomical amount that they would need to fill over the course of the next month. And of course, I'm going to be helping fill that, but I'm also, in my opinion, this is probably the best tournament. If you just want like EV wise, every team you draft into this tournament, I think is going to be probably the best investment you make in all of best ball. So I'm excited to dive into a bunch of these drafts here over the course of the next month.
EV wise, and also if you're just into drafting the best players, right? This is the format for you, kind of, because there is no week 17 correlation. There is no playoffs. There is none of that to worry about. Stacking, sure, but like other than that, it's who do we think is going to put up the most points, and that's who we're drafting. I mean, there is some strategy involved in team structures and stuff, but I think it drastically alters over here on drafters where, zero RBs already becoming harder on the other sites. It's almost not viable here. Like you have to really hit it properly in order to pull off a zero RB team, I think, on drafters. No, this isn't real. There's no way.
We've never since May, right? You and I drafted a ton of teams on stream. We've talked on stream. I've watched you draft. You've watched me draft. You've edited videos where I draft. Never have we had the 101.
This is going to get thrown out, right? There's no way that this can be accurate.
Shout out Zach from Drafters, wherever you are. Thank you so much. But don't tell the people that you gave it to us. Obviously kidding, but very, I agree with you. A couple of things. I think it's really fascinating, the roster, like the structural perspective of, I don't have my draft hacker set up, but also just teaser. This is my first drafters draft of the summer. I specifically wanted to wait on drafters until closer to the end of the summer because I feel like it's the best. Obviously, you can get really big ADP values over the course of the summer, which can help you in a cumulative scoring tournament. But I think that a little bit extra certainty in a cumulative scoring format is really helpful. Like if you miss on things on Underdog or DraftKings or whatever, you miss on ADP values, right? Cam Akers goes down, you didn't get 12th round Darrell Henderson or whatever. It hurts a little bit more there because those teams can be absolute super teams. On this, it's like, look, if Darrell Henderson still fails, like, and which is, I guess, technically true on both sites, but the certainty of being able to get kind of your later round guys and even middle round guys, who's hurt, who isn't, where is the pecking order following? We're obviously taking Justin Jefferson, right? I know you love Jamar Chase, but we're taking.
No, I actually I didn't want to interrupt your point, but every other side, I think you could make a case for Jamar Chase over Justin Jefferson, whether you like it or not. I don't think on cumulative scoring you can make the case for Justin Jefferson.
Great point.
Over Jamar Chase. Like I think it's just obvious that like in a season-long format, Justin Jefferson is a better pick. I just like Jamar Chase on the upside for a single game where he can just go and take over that game. I think it's more likely, but like season-long outcome, Jefferson is number one, and I think it's like way more separated on drafters.
That's a really good point, actually, that I hadn't even honestly thought through a ton, where, like you said, I still prefer Jefferson. I think that the Chase weekly ceiling compared to the Jefferson weekly ceiling is a little overstated because Chase has, in particular in week 17, 2 years ago, had that monster game that is just like always going to stick with us. But I think Jefferson has, like, when you demand that many targets and you're that efficient and you're that good, he has a ceiling like that. I also think this year in particular, Jefferson's ceiling is like kind of crazy. They're going to throw, and they're going to throw a lot, in my opinion. And their defense with Beimfohr, the defense from a talent perspective in Minnesota, not awesome, to say the least. And then from Brian Flores is in town as the new defensive coordinator for the Vikings. in a dome, and that fella is going to blitz, and he's going to blitz, and then he's going to blitz some more, which can be okay, generally speaking, from football strategy. But it also incites a lot of big plays for your opponents, right? When you're leaving your corners and your DBs out on an island against NFL wide receivers where DBs can't touch anybody. We saw, go look at a bunch of Dolphins games, over the course of the last several years where Flores was implementing this really blitz heavy scheme. They had good corners, Byron Jones and Xavier Howard and stuff, and they were still giving up tons of points and tons of big plays because that scheme is really good for kind of shootouts or whatever. And I mean, geez, if Justin Jefferson is playing in negative game scripts all the time and they're throwing 50 times in full PPR, which of course drafters is, yeah, I think it's just a lock. Everybody loves Jamar Chase. Other thing I would just say is Burrow is hurt right now. We all expect Burrow will be totally fine, but Chase himself just came out and said something about I don't know, dude, why don't you just sit out for a little bit and get healthy? I don't think he's going to in terms of Burrow, but there's just so many little little feathers in the cap of Jefferson, I think in particular on drafters, that it's really not even close, I don't think.
Yeah, the separation between the two on this particular site is just immense to me. There's times I'm thinking of taking Chase over Jefferson occasionally on the other sites, but I don't even think it would be a thought here ever, to be perfectly honest.
What do you think at the 2-3 turn here? We are 3 picks away now. I know you mentioned, not loving 0 RB as much, and I definitely don't love 0 RB as much, but I also feel like people fall into the trap of just reaching on any old running back, if you will, because they're so worried about those early season points. And I think this year we can get early season points from some running backs a little bit later, as opposed to 2 years ago. If you didn't get a running back in the first 6 rounds, you're drafting backups. What are you thinking at the 2-3 turn?
I really want to see what they do with this pick before us, because I mean, I don't know how we don't take Hurts here in one of our 2 picks.
Yeah, I do really like Jalen Hurts. I actually like Jalen Hurts more on drafters than the other sites because he is just going. Can we take him and then talk a little bit about?
Yeah, let's star him and
cue him. We'll talk about him after. Let's talk about the second pick. I'm pretty open here. I actually think I would take Mark Andrews.
Okay. I'm not opposed to it. Just getting elites at our onesie positions and working. We're only
going to take 2 of those. I really love Mark Andrews in general this season, and I like buying the JT discount. This is not the world's best site for it and the format for it. You know what I mean? He's not going to probably catch a lot of passes, and the extra risk is probably not awesome for him on here. Any form of sitting out from your 2-3 turn pick. I'm not saying he will, but it's just a little bit worry, a little bit of a worry for me when we can just lock it. Dude, you lock in Justin Jefferson, Jalen Hurts, and Mark Andrews. And I feel like in cumulative scoring, my God, you just have a huge edge on so many teams.
Yeah. Gerardo's saying in the chat, isn't this the ideal format for 0 RB? And I'll let you answer this because I don't think so. And I don't think so, especially now with the way the drafts have altered. Maybe you could have said that for last year and definitely 2 years ago. But because of the way people are drafting and the way things are getting pushed around, I just don't think it is the right format. What are your thoughts on that?
It's definitely a suboptimal format for 0 running back. The big perk of 0 running back is you can kind of string together good enough weeks at running back early in the season and build a team that as the season goes on, those running backs are right. You're fine. Guys are getting hurt. Right. So Zeke goes down, not this year, obviously. In the past, Zeke goes down. Tony Pollard steps into so you get 7th round Tony Pollard that is really a first round pick. Now projects like a first round pick, right? Dalvin Cook goes down. Alexander Madison projects like a first round pick. or you have uncertain situations where things just like work themselves out with, could be a rookie, right, that comes on later in the season, could be the Bills a couple of years ago. Remember, they had Zach Moss and Devin Singletary, and Zach Moss, we come to find out, is just not very good at football, and they didn't trust him very much. But it took a while for Devin Singletary to become a thing, and all those kinds of situations. But you need time for those to play out. On drafters, you don't have time for your running backs. Like, you can still advance on Underdog or DraftKings with like somewhat like piecemealing together, like not super big scores at running back, but like good enough. You know what I mean? On here, you have to beat 100,000 other teams. You can't have down, like, you need week 1, your running backs better be scoring some points, because you need to score a ton of points from week 1 all the way to week 17. So I do think zero running back is viable here, but I think zero running back on Underdog and DraftKings, you can be kind of a little bit more fluid with it. Like, you really want to push it and take really, really high variance approach to running back, go for it. On here, like, I have zero running back teams that start with like Damian Harris on Underdog, in the 11th round or whatever. That team is dead here on drafters. And so it's just a kind of a little bit more of a balancing act. So I wouldn't say ideal. I would say it's actually probably underutilized, but I think it's also harder to utilize on drafters.
It just feels like it's a needle you have to thread perfectly.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? On this particular site, where like you could be doing like almost like the Rocky thing, where you're the underdog on the other sites. You're just watching yourself slowly creep up into one of those top 2 spots to move on to the playoffs. And now you have Devon A-Chain, who's taken over the backfield in Miami, and even Damian Harris. And those were your top 2 running backs that you picked. And then other guys. Or maybe you took Kamara, who only get the 3-game suspension, and he came out and is blown up. You hear this thing behind me?
This thing, that's amazing. ETN goes down in week 9, right? And now it's Tank Bigsby season, but Tank didn't give you a ton. It's certainly not, high end. It's not that he's not scoring any points, but he's not giving you the big, huge weeks for the first several weeks. So yeah, totally agree. I know we're about to be back on the clock. I did just want to answer this. David, have you watched? We've talked to you a lot of times. You are high as a kite if you think that I was going to strongly consider Derrick Henry on drafters. I do get it. That I do like Derrick Henry now more than I did before they signed DeAndre Hopkins. But also, this is a really bad format for Derrick Henry, in my opinion, with full PPR. He can crush on Underdog, and I will be buried on Underdog if he crushes. But I'm not really into him on drafters personally.
All right, so we're coming back up on the clock here. Speaking of running backs, we're not taking Najee Harris is at the top of the list.
Damn it, Drake London.
London was going to be like a lock for me here.
I hate these running backs. I'm putting back Q because he's my favorite player. We obviously already have a quarterback. I don't have a crazy strong take. Ayuk is my favorite player here, but what do you think?
I don't mind Ayuk. I wish we had a few more seconds to talk it out, because I was wondering if doing something like Deontay Johnson with
I like Deontay. I think Deontay is my favorite player left here. The reason why
he feels good for drafters too.
He's much better on drafters, and I just like. Let's take those guys we just shit on, or I just mostly shit on zero running back, and now we're gonna draft a zero running back team. But Ayuk, I like when we're like pushed up against it. I actually really don't love Najee or Travis Etienne. I've made kind of my Travis Etienne case known a bunch of times, so I don't really want to rehash it. Obviously, the quarterbacks there were appealing. So, who knows? Maybe we could say we would want back the Jalen Hurts pick, but I'm still not upset with the Jalen Hurts pick. But I think when you get your back pressed up against the wall, one thing I really do like to do is like, all right, let me take this wide receiver with like his quarterback available later. And like Purdy will obviously be available later to us with Brandon Ayuk. And like Brandon Ayuk has paths to just being an absolute stone cold smash where the uncertainty of how everything projects when you have Debo, Kittle, CMC, and Ayuk is awkward. But like if things break his way, he could just be the guy that scores those touchdowns. And he has crazy contingent, right? If something happens to Debo Samuel or George Kittle or even Christian McCaffrey, like Brandon Ayuk is a stone cold smash in a cumulative scoring format like this. And then Deontay, same thing. Just because you need a running back, I don't think like you don't just take Najee Harris when you don't like Najee Harris because you need a running back. And so this is a great format for Deontay, maybe the best format for Deontay. He's like a usable week king in drafters. It's like, dude, you need your wide receiver 3 or your flex filled. You can probably guarantee in this format that Deontay filled it. Is he going to be putting up 35-point weeks? Probably not. But he can really just keep you afloat throughout the whole season with the amount of targets that he gets and the amount of catches that he's going to rack up. That's like, it seems like, yeah, of course we want the spike weeks, but we're going to target those spike week players, right, as we have so far. And then you do still need that guy that's like rounding out your team all the time. And I really like Deontay for that here on Drafters.
I think if I had a little bit more time to think about it, that one of those wide receivers I might have pushed a little bit more for Kenneth Walker.
Okay.
For just to have that anchor running back in an offense that we know wants to go run heavy. We know Kenneth Walker is going to be, I know we all like Zach Charbonnet, but for cumulative scoring.
Do we really?
I mean,
he's fine. They're both like fine. They both just feel like, yeah, they're fine.
But I feel like it's suppressing Kenneth Walker's ADP a little bit. And I think it's kind of making him a bit of a value around where he's going, especially in a site like this, where like, if we did push running back, I don't think you're upset if Kenneth Walker is your first running back. It's like, do we like Kenneth Walker as our first running back or Deontay Johnson as our third wide receiver? We like both. Both are fine. Right. So I just think that would have been a little more of a discussion I would have liked to have had if we had a little more time, but I'm still also working my way through what I want to do on drafters. Right. So like, that's the stuff. Cause my brain immediately went to when we got up on that clock, I was like, oh, maybe we go Deontay Johnson and Kenneth Walker for the correlation. And I had to like throw that away immediately because it literally doesn't matter, but that's where your brain goes to stuff like that. It doesn't matter.
Absolutely. The other thing I'll say is I definitely am not going to say anything negative about the Kenneth Walker thought, but at this next turn, I do feel like there's a group of running backs that also fit here, like as a quasi anchor, right? Like a 6th or a 7th round anchor. I know Madison just went, but he's definitely on that list as someone that if he falls to you back at 72, which he will from time to time, I think he makes sense. I really don't like Miles Sanders, but I actually think this is the site. Now they're all gonna I'm literally, these assholes are taking every single guy that I was just
there goes Akers.
Good
job, Erik.
But you know what I mean? These guys make a ton of sense as like, okay, don't take Najee, right? Get the good wide receiver there, and then take Akers or Madison or Miles Sanders or Dameon Pierce or whatever. Like I like those guys like just as much as him, particularly at cost, and I can get a little bit better wide receiver there. So, Madison would have been my preference. Akers was probably number 2, but if Dameon Pierce comes back to us here, I think Javonte is a good pick. I know he's pricier on this site, but also I am an idiot and I'm gonna pound the table in 10 seconds for a certain player who I just realized is available, who makes a shit ton of sense on this team. So there goes.
So we're getting Dobbins, right? Like that's a
Dobbins. I think we can take I don't even love Dameon Pierce, but I actually think he makes a lot of sense on this team.
Yeah.
With
Pierce Dobbins.
Pierce Dobbins as your 2 lead running backs on a 0 RB team with Justin Jefferson and Mark Andrews and Jalen Hurts. That seems pretty good to me. Is that what you're on board with?
Yeah, I think that's the play.
82 overall for J.K. Dobbins.
Well,
that's insanity, dude.
I might have been texting with somebody that you did a marathon stream with earlier today. I was texting with him last night, and we were actually talking about Breece Hall and J.K. Dobbins and how
we talked about both of them today too.
The two of us, we decided that we are going to be drafting heavy volume of those 2 players over the next 2 weeks because I just think that they are egregiously, especially Dobbins, more so than Breece Hall for me, anyways. But I think they're both like egregiously underpriced right now.
Breece, we talked about, again, spoiler, I recorded a new Legendary Sickos with Pat Kareen. It'll be coming out probably tomorrow, so check that out. It is a marathon episode, as we like to do. So you'll have to weed through 2.5 hours of conversation to find the Breece Hall. But I do think like Breece is a first round pick profile, like in terms of the profile. Now, you have some issues that are pushing him down. A, running backs are cheaper. B, he tore his ACL last year. And C, they've been flirting with Dalvin and free agent running backs. So I'm not saying he should go in the first round. But that's the exact type of thing you want to buy in the third, now going in the fourth. A lot of the times I saw somebody in the Discord posted a middle of the 5th round Breece Hall team they drafted, which is like criminal. That's Najee Harris is going in the end of the 3rd and Breece Hall is going in the middle of the 5th in a draft. That makes no sense. You'll never convince me that makes any sense. And so sometimes you have to press that edge and just be like, look, this dude could be the 101 next year. That is in the range of, it is not in the range of outcomes for Najee Harris to be the 101 next year, or Miles Sanders or Madison, these guys that we just talked about that we like. I think Breece is a home run, and J.K. Dobbins is being treated like all these other running backs who are like I know he's not practicing, but who are like Josh Jacobs is not in Las Vegas, or like not in, like, I don't even know if he's like Will Fuller. I don't know if anybody even knows where he actually is. The day they started camp, he was spotted at the Vegas airport leaving Las Vegas. Dobbins is at camp. He's like chumming it up with Harbaugh and like out there, clearly like he can't be too upset because he's out there. Like it's just, in my opinion, he obviously wants money, but he ain't going to get it. He's, let's hold in. Let's just chill out, not take the extra unnecessary hits and wear and tear on my body in my last year of my rookie contract, and chill out a little bit. And like, I think they're all on the same page. They wish does Harbaugh wish J.K. Dobbins was practicing? Sure. But like, does he actually really care? I don't think so.
Well, there's the real quick thing on Dobbins is we were worried about it being injury related at first. The Ravens are actually negotiating with him. To what degree, we don't know, but there is a window that's open that they're talking. So that tells me that they are not concerned about the injury at all. So I just don't think there is any injury problems here. So I think it's all smoke and mirrors, to your point, with J.K. Dobbins. So I'm going to draft him while I'm getting that dip. I already had a decent amount of J.K. Dobbins. The guy I didn't have a lot of was Breece Hall. And it's not that I didn't like Breece Hall. It's where he was going and the guys around him that I actually liked a lot. But now that he's fallen, my underweight Breece Hall is probably going to move back up to I might end up slightly over the field on Breece Hall if this price stays long enough that I can get enough drafts in.
And I'm going to take a big stand on Breece Hall and on J.K. Dobbins. Going to end up being 2 guys I'm going to need to do well this year based on this pricing. I just think the prices are wrong. I'm not saying they'll work out. We never know. There goes Antonio Gibson. I actually like Pacheco. This Pacheco price is really good. And then what do you think about, the Bateman price? He's way too cheap, but we do have Andrews and Dobbins. just what do you think about that? We got 10 seconds. Do you want to take Pacheco?
Let's take Pacheco. Let's get that. I mean, I'm not big on Pacheco in other formats. It seems like this is the better and I kind of like him better here. Do we?
I really want Bateman. I know we don't have Lamar, and I know we have. It's kind of it feels a little bit awkward.
Can we look at the rest of the wide receivers real fast that are available?
Yep. So Tony, Odell, it's such a tier break.
Yeah, I think
at wide receiver. And it's still a big bet on the Ravens. Like, and this is also maybe the best format for this, where I'm not saying you can't do this on Underdog or on DraftKings or whatever. It is uncomfortable to do this like really weird Frankenstein Ravens thing with a naked Jalen Hurts, right? We don't have Devonta Smith, or we don't have any of his top guys. But if you're gonna do it, this is the exact right. You it's hard to navigate through the playoff gauntlet on Underdog if Jalen Hurts is having good games, but his wide receivers, we don't have his wide receivers or Dallas Goedert. Whereas this is the one format that you can like you said, you got player takes, which is kind of everybody that we drafted here. I just took my favorite available. We just took my favorite available player. Like, you can press it here because, of course, ideally will we have Jalen Hurts with AJ Brown or Devonta Smith, but we have Justin fucking Jefferson on this team. Like, he can just fill in that AJ Brown or Devonta Smith role. Then you have the elite tight end, and now you just made a big bet on the Ravens at cheap prices, right? It's like it kind of all comes together to me, and then you combine with, or in my opinion, that is a big tier break after Bateman. And I have Bateman ranked in the 70s, and he's going in the mid 90s. I just think it's the perfect time to buy. You mentioned Brees, Dobbins, Bateman, probably Tony, who hasn't come off the board yet. Like, it's the perfect time to buy all those guys.
My only issue would have been if we were sitting there in that 2-3 turn and we were like agonizing over Mark Andrews or somebody else, right? Like, then that would have been.
If we wanted it to do over again, I think it would have been Andrews. We would have swapped out or Hurts, I guess.
For who is the question?
That's the problem, is there's nobody there that, like, I mean, we would have talked about Brees or something like that, which isn't like some big value. But now look at the running backs we have. Like, I would rather have these. I would rather have this running back room with Jalen Hurts and Mark Andrews at the onesies than take a running back at that 2-3 turn and a worse quarterback and a worse tight end. Like, I would rather have this team.
Yeah, and I think that this specific team shows why drafting early is good too. Because to Nick's point, he says, I think I have a few iterations of this exact start. And I think what's starting to happen is as like the rounds are getting a lot more solidified with the players, right? Like, the one problem with having the 101, and I'm not complaining, please give me all the 101s I can get. But you really do sort of get pigeonholed into what feels like a few of the same starts over and over with Justin Jefferson. It's like 4 to 5 guys that you're rotating in and out for that start because they're all moving in and out. If you weren't drafting early, I know a lot of you probably were, but if you weren't drafting in May when we were drafting to start, the third round was a lot different. There was a lot of value in the third round. So you could have mixed and matched what you were doing with Justin Jefferson a lot easier there, because we had guys that we loved through the 306, basically. Yep. And spoiler alert, it was like Nick Chubb in the third round was where we were starting with May.
Now right? At the 1-2 turn.
Now he's at the 1-2 turn. So you could have gotten a lot of like variants of the Justin Jefferson team. That is one thing I've noticed going into August is the Jefferson and Jamar Chase teams are starting to all kind of look the same in the beginning. You can obviously alter the end, but it's hard to get alterations for those starts in the beginning of drafts.
Yeah, it is. That's something you really do have to balance throughout the course of the whole summer. Is drafting the best available player can sometimes mean you're drafting the player that everyone else is drafting at that spot, and not always. I do think pulling Andrews up just a smidge was good. I know saying, drafting Jalen Hurts without, naked Jalen Hurts without a stacking partner, I do think most people are trying to find a team with him and AJ Brown or Devonta Smith, or then getting Dallas Goedert. So that does, give us a little bit of a different, and then pulling up the 2 wide receivers as opposed to taking, a running back there. Or I think there's a lot of those quarterbacks all go right there at that 4 or 5 turn, Burrow, Herbert, Fields, or whatever. So I think you'll see a lot of take out Hurts from the team that we have and then put one of those other quarterbacks in.
Who I wanted just went. That's why I made that little wince.
Khalil Herbert.
Yeah, I thought Herbert would have been great for this pick.
This is a
tough spot.
But I don't love this. I don't love this spot. Shit. You have a take on anything?
Do we want to grab Rashee Rice as another wide receiver?
Yeah,
bet on him. And
I'm
then
down
figure
for that.
out what we want
Default to the Chiefs, baby.
Chiefs and Ravens. Let's go.
Yeah, exactly. Eli Mitchell feels good on
What's the injury status? Because they're working people out because of him.
I know. Abductor strain, a week.
Oh, about a week. That's not bad.
I mean, we don't have to force that either, but he's probably my top player here.
I'm fine with that because I did want to get a running back here.
Yeah, I like him.
Yeah,
little mini bet right on the 49ers, Ayuk and Eli Mitchell. So like something happens to CMC. I know obviously that's good for Eli Mitchell, but CMC is going to earn more targets also than like those are like really tiny little things. Like it boosts Ayuk's projection like a half point, in a given week. But it's like those are the little things to break a tie in a spot where, quite frankly, we didn't really love anybody. I like it.
Did you weep?
He's got like, I think I am concerned about Eli Mitchell. I drafted quite a bit of him on all sites. I am concerned about him because the injuries I think are like he's like Kadarius Toney or Rashad Penny. I think we don't speak about him that way, because it's funnier to dunk on Toney and Rashad Penny and those guys. But I think Eli Mitchell's pretty much in that same, group.
I'm pretty underweight on Mitchell. Did you cry earlier today for an extended period of time when Jerome Ford got hurt at practice?
Yes. Yeah. We signed on to record the legendary Sickos episode, and Crane didn't say hi. He didn't say like, hey, we haven't talked in a little while. How's everything going? How's the wife or whatever? We sign on. I hop on the StreamYard and he goes, did you see the Jerome Ford injury? And I'm like, you mother, no, actually, I had not yet at that point. And he's like, let me send it to you. Like, motherfucker, we're about to talk, like have a friendly conversation for the next 2.5 hours or whatever, as we usually do. And you're like bringing me down right away. Like one of my boys, Jerome Ford, hurt already, but it obviously didn't look good. He wasn't putting any weight on that leg or whatever, but I think typical football injury. I don't think that I'm not a Twitter doctor, but I think it's okay. Basically,
yeah, it was some sort of hamstring, which I'd rather him do that in August than September.
It's not ideal, but it could be worse. You can have a Tim Patrick and the annual. We're gonna have to, when we do awards next year, we're gonna have to do the annual Tim Patrick of the guy who goes down with a devastating career-ending injury every freaking summer.
Yeah, God, that's gotta be like mentally taxing if you're him. Like I can't even think. I know he's made a lot of money, like whatever, but it's your advanced earnings, right? Like what you're going to be earning in the future and your entire.
They're not guaranteed contracts. I mean, you have basically just a signing bonus, and he's not going to get cut this year, I don't think, but it might be over. His literal football career might be over. It's brutal.
Yeah, stuff. I really wanted Khalil Herbert on the last turn.
I also really like Khalil Herbert on drafters, especially over Eli Mitchell. Is strictly a handcuff, right? I know he might score a little bit when CMC is playing, but like Khalil Herbert is a great guy to draft. I mean, in general, but like on here, where, dude, I know him and Foreman are splitting reps. I do like Foreman as a consolation prize there. But I just feel like a Bears running back is going to be so valuable, like in general, but on underdog and stuff, if they're splitting time or even the ceiling outcome is valuable, but like it's a smidge muted because it's like, okay, I know I need Khalil Herbert to beat out these other guys, but then I need it to last until week 17. On here is like, dude, even if it doesn't last, you get 6 weeks of Khalil Herbert like superstar, wheels up, man. Like that is a huge, huge difference maker on drafters. And it's a good example of like of course I want the Bears lead back, but like even if I don't get, week 15, 16, 17 Khalil Herbert smash, if I get it early here, it's still awesome.
What are your thoughts on getting Dulcich and being done with tight end?
I like Dulcich here. This is a good price on Dulcich.
I would like that.
I'm very into that. How many wide receivers? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let me just scroll a smidgy. There. R.I.P. Jerome Ford. What pick is this?
145.
Can we Broncos this? Can I interest you in? I know it's a reach.
Marvin Mims,
but he's not coming back. And just create a little secondary Broncos stack, cheap secondary Broncos stack with Mims and you cool with that?
Yeah, I'm good with that because I was trying to look at the other receivers and the other receivers all look like not drafters guys to me. I mean, maybe Van Jefferson, maybe.
But like we're gonna take Van Jefferson over Marvin Mims, like
right. I mean, I like Chark and DPJ on other sites for like weekly spike week stuff.
Weekly spike, yep.
But I mean, DPJ, what are we looking at him realistically hitting our lineup? 3 times if we're lucky, right?
Yeah, a couple long touchdowns, right? The 3 for 75 and 1 week or whatever. I'm making things up, but that's what you're hoping for. Type of thing. Marvin Mims, I think it's going to be really tough for him, obviously, to become kind of the lead-ish guy in that offense. But like, I think we talked about this, right? Like this is when we talked about training camp news. Chasing Marvin Mims up a little bit is literally why you draft right now and why you're still drafting teams. He hasn't crossed into an ADP spot like Marquez Callaway 2 years ago, where you went from the 18th round to the fucking 8th round or whatever, where it's like, buddy, we have leaped like 7 tiers of wide receiver. That is a bit rich. Mims has barely moved up. I actually can't believe how little he's moved up. I feel like he should be going more closer to pick 100. Like Juju, Zay Jones, Lazard. I'm trying to think of, those guys. Like, why is he worse than those guys? I don't, now that Patrick's out and Hamler, frankly, are both out of the conversation. He's playing in 3 wide sets. And like, what if he's just really good? We don't know that Cortland Sutton is that good.
Mm-hmm.
And then you add in the fact that we were able to bring Dulcich along, like to create this little mini bet right there on the Broncos with 2 young guys. Like, I really love that move there. Close out tight end. You only got 2. Mims, we need a little juice at wide receiver, and he brings that. He's like, you mentioned Brees and Dobbins before, but Mims is like my wide receiver guy for me that much. I know he's not falling like those guys, but like he's my target right now in these rounds where like he's got to rise, right? Like he has to rise. I want to get as much before the real rise comes. Like wait till he catches a touchdown in preseason, dude. Wait till he catches a touchdown. Like we're getting pick 100 Marvin Mims.
I'm not used to being the one with the dogs that are barking in the background. So this
I love it. Yeah,
territory for me. But yeah, I thought I was gonna kind of be done drafting Mims because I was drafting him pretty frequently already before the stuff that went down at camp, and the fact that he's just not moving up that much. To your point, like I'm still grabbing him. I'm just still doing it, and it's like, all right, if you're gonna keep giving me Mims, but I think that just shows that people just overlook things sometimes, and sometimes that ADP just settles where it settles. Like for instance, Kendre Miller, we see him go in the 13th round here, right? I'm out on Kendre Miller now. I was in on Kendre Miller, and I am out now.
I've also stopped drafting him. Not like My opinion hasn't changed. He could still be very good, but I packed my bags already. I packed my bags, and now, like you said, I can take other guys. Like I actually don't have
a
as
lot of
much
red flags coming out now too for him. So
yes. So shorter suspend, which honestly I was expecting maybe 4 games or something for Kamara. So who gives a shit if it's 3? But I mean, I think that the upside scenario is still the same for Kendre Miller, but there are a handful more issues than there were when we started drafting in May or whatever. We just,
and
that's how it goes.
Guys out. That's like what I'm concerned about is, Benjamin went down, which I'm going to be honest, I forgot was even on the Saints
I know.
because we're talking about the other 3 backs, and now goes down, and you feel like, well, who cares? Well, the Saints clearly care because now they brought in Kareem Hunt today to work out for them, and it's like
that
Jesus,
would be
if they
coffin for Kendre. It would
for
be
everyone.
Over.
It feels like true. It's over for everyone. Like
that's true.
Right, like other than Kamara, if you can keep getting Kamara where he's going, but Jesus, like that Saints backfield situation is it feels muddier by the day.
Good God, that is a hefty price on Richie James. I'm sorry, that is a 160.
He's been going up, man.
Good Lord. Glad I got some of that. Glad I drafted him before.
Yeah.
As we're approaching the clock, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off on that. God. That's who I wanted.
Yeah. It would have been nice.
We can buy a little falling forward. We also don't have to. Oh, my mother. Son of a. I thought Purdy made a lot of sense.
Well, we could still do Pickett if we wanted to get a quarterback because we have Deontay Johnson. So we could do that.
And then I would say I like Tajay if we don't want to do Ford.
If you want to do a running back, I'm fine with Tajay. Do you have any interest in Shaheed here?
Yeah. I was going to ask, what do you, I know he got dinged up, but I think he's fine.
I kind of like Shaheed in the spot. And
he's one of my highest owned wide. Yeah. He's one of my highest owned wide receivers. Let's take him. I love the Saints. I'm totally down to do anything to fade Michael Thomas with somebody else. So I love Shaheed. I think 169 there, nice, but we are getting a nice little discount too during this time where he got dinged up in camp.
I know we grabbed Pickett there. What are your thoughts on drafters though? Because I think I'm against it, but I know last year the winner won with the solo QB stuff. I mean, do you have thoughts on that? Because I understand the dude won it, and he missed like 2 weeks of scoring and everything, and he just built a super team around it. Like, that's great, but you are literally bypassing points in a cumulative scoring format.
Yeah, 10 to 15 points you're giving up. On average, right? 10 to 15
for 1 week.
For 1 week. And then you are, of course, it's tough to say from a projection perspective, but you're definitely giving up the likelihood of a certain amount of points in those other weeks. Because we've clearly said that you've drafted a good team, right? So Jalen Hurts, as we have here, is going to have some weeks where he doesn't score 25 or 30 fantasy points. In those weeks, now you need Kenny Pickett or Brock Purdy or Sam Howell or Mac Jones or whatever to outscore him. And quite frankly, the likelihood is not amazing. But let's say over the course of the season, right? So let's just use 15. Actually probably a little high projection wise, but let's just use 15 from a late round quarterback in his bye week. So you've definitely given up 15 points by only drafting one quarterback in, let's say, Jalen Hurts here. There are going to be games, as there were last year, where Jalen Hurts only scores 15 to 20 fantasy points. And in those weeks, if Kenny Pickett or someone scores more, obviously you're adding to the amount of points you've given up. Let's say that happens a couple times. Pickett scores 25. in those weeks, right? So in total, you've given up, we'll just use 30. You've given up 30 fantasy points by only drafting the one elite quarterback. I'm making up a number, but I think it's a fairly real
fair number.
30 is a fairly realistic number.
35 is what I was going to throw out. So 30 is more than fair.
I think 30 is a fair number to say when you only draft that one quarterback, this is what you're giving up. Right now, you could draft like 2 elite quarterbacks and you might be giving up more than 30, but also by drafting 2 elite quarterbacks, you're giving up a lot extra, right? In the draft, you're giving up huge upside at the other positions.
Yeah.
What I will say is in the absolute, I'm pretty intrigued by solo quarterback on drafters, because in the absolute ceiling outcome of your season from 2 things, that quarterback, let's just say Jalen Hurts or Patrick Mahomes or whatever, and the dart throws you get to use at the other positions, you probably more than make up for that, because we're assuming you were right? Jalen Hurts is just churning out 20 points every single week, and then some in his big spike weeks. And then you used all those scratch off lottery tickets in the 15th to 20th round on all these running backs or late round rookie wide receivers or whatever. And you find this year's Eli Mitchell. You find this year's CPAT. You find this year's Pat and I just talked about Sony Michel. Remember when he landed on the Rams or whatever and was like a superstar down the stretch? You find that those guys more than make up for 30 points over the course of the season. Now, it's a strategy I would employ in bulk. We'll talk about it here in a second. Yeah. God damn it, we should have waited on Hal. Let me just scroll a smidge to start to see. I like Chase Brown.
I was just gonna say I like Chase Brown. God, I almost don't even getting real weird and going with CEH and getting both Kansas City backs on this.
Do you think he's actually the other Kansas City back though? Or is it generic Prince?
It could be Prince, but we don't. Nobody knows right now.
How many? What? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
There's a receiver I want later.
Okay. I'm also not as super familiar with I'm just going to scroll a little and see if anybody.
I don't think it's worse if we get a third tight end at some point too.
I don't think so either.
Like right now.
Shit. Okay. I don't want Zeke. Can I take Justin Ross?
Yeah, you can do Ross. That was really my other suggestion.
The hype on Justin Ross is absolutely out of control. But I also feel like, so we took Rashee Rice, and I know you don't want to give up a spot, but like Justin Watson is the guy blocking these guys, particularly now that Tony is hurt. And I don't think, and I also don't think it's never so binary. We treat it binary like it's fucking Madden, where it's like you're at the top of the depth chart, you play every game and you get every snap, and you like those guys get all the work. And like particularly in Kansas City, these dudes just like Justin Watson has been the starter. That means he's out there on the first snap and playing a good amount, right? But like Rice probably plays. And like Richie James is right. Sky Moore's a starting slot receiver, but Richie James is going to play, and they're going to have 2 tight end sets, and they're going to have, when Tony's back, they're going to have stuff out there for Tony. And like, if Justin Ross actually is good, which I'm not sold that he is, but like, there's so many avenues to Chiefs wide receivers just being worth it that once we get down here, we have made the Rice bet. I think it makes sense to like we did with the Broncos, right? You take Dulcich and Mims, and it's like there's our little mini bet on the Broncos on this team. And I like to do that actually on all sites, but on drafters too, where it's like, look, we got 20 picks. I'm not saying to punt off them. That's not at all what I'm saying, but I'm saying we can correlate them as little mini side bets and say, look, honestly, if we hit on either Rice or Ross on this team, that's a fucking home run. Like that's an absolute home run and can win you everything. If they both happen to give us some good weeks, even better. But it's our show today, what Corinne and I talked about was getting less things right. And like, that's a way to do it. You know what I mean? Like we have Andrews, so like we don't even need Dulcich. But if Dulcich hits, right, the Broncos hit, we want that. Like that's huge for us.
Yeah, we made bets on the Chiefs, the Ravens, and the Broncos without having that quarterback, which is totally fine.
Good. And then you have Hurts, and then we have a Steelers bet too. Like that's pretty good.
I want to get back to the quarterback point real quick because like I am kind of the quarterback guy, right? Like of the people that do content, I typically like the quarterback stuff. And I obviously like the elite quarterbacks on drafters as well. But I wouldn't be doing some of the funky stuff I do with QBs on drafters that I do on the other sites. This is the first point I want to make. Like that double elite QB stuff that I do, like here and there, I sprinkle those in a little bit on Underdog and DraftKings. I would never consider doing that on drafters at all. That it just feels very bad. The other thing that I was going to say about this quarterback stuff, I think we did it right. I think if you're going to grab one, you grab the other one late, right? And God, I just had a point and I totally whiffed on it. I forgot what it was because we go off on so many side tangents.
That tends to happen.
Other thing, real quick, I saw someone say double Ty turn here, meaning Ty Chandler. There was, and I know we say take everything with a grain of salt, but there was a camp report today from Minnesota that all of the backup running backs look awful. And don't be surprised if Minnesota starts working somebody out because they're saying that Ty Chandler and nobody else is kind of impressing the coaching staff there.
You mean Ty Chandler and Kene Nwangwu and a guy who never caught a pass in college aren't awesome at football? Color me fucking shocked.
Yeah. So like that's the other thing you need to be.
And the vets have gotten cheap now, right? It's not that they weren't cheap before, but none of these guys have signed. Like Dalvin could come back. Like that is in the range of outcomes that Dalvin just comes back. He's visited every possible spot and he's not getting what he wants. So if he's not going to get what he wants elsewhere, he's just going to get the minimum, right? I assume that's what everyone is just saying. Yeah, we're just going to give you the vet minimum, and we're also probably not going to guarantee you any work. Well, he could come back to Minnesota and get the vet minimum and probably get some kind of guaranteed role, right? Like I drafted some Ty Chandler. I actually regret it. To be totally, if I'm just being totally honest at this point, I would actually be surprised if they didn't bring somebody in on the minimum. But we have new information now. At the time, I guess I shouldn't say I regret it because at the time I do think it was different and it was smart to try to get out ahead of it. But now it feels very different than when 2 months ago or whatever.
This running back carousel needs to come to an end, by the way. We just need to get these guys signed.
I'm so sick of being like, well, aren't you worried about, Kareem Hunt in there?
Speaking of running backs, do we want to take a gander at what's available at the RB spot?
Can I
God, I'm shocked that this name's getting typed in.
I'm putting him in the queue. I don't give a shit. He's right close to the top of the queue. Can I pound the table for my boy Evan Hall?
If we're pounding the table,
what do you got?
Well, let's grab Quez Watkins right now. Let's just get our stack.
I like it. Just take care of it.
And just wrap it up. It's the 19th round. It just makes the most sense for this team, I think.
Totally on board. Totally on board. I also think it's not crazy to do the hurt stacks like this with just a Quez or who's the other who's Quez competing with? I forget. Why am I drawing a blank? But anyway, the ancillary piece, right? I would have loved Gainwell on this team. I got mad when he got taken, but like that kind of a bet where it's like, I don't know, like if Jefferson smashes a bunch and Andrews smashes a bunch, AJ Brown and Devonta Smith are not offset, but we can navigate ways to offset their big weeks with the other players that we have. And then you can really make up the ground, right? You can weave your way through all of those Hurts, AJ Brown stacks, Hurts, Devonta Smith stacks with when he throws a touchdown to Kenny Gainwell and he throws a long bomb to Quez Watkins. And like those things, no one is doing that in this tournament. And I'm not saying you should do it like at a really high frequency, but I think it's a good way to kind of work your way through drafters. Whereas honestly, on underdog, if I don't have AJ Brown or Devonta Smith, sure, I can use Goddard, but I don't really want to do Hurts, Quez so much, in Best Ball Mania. But on here, it sounds weird, but I actually do think you can do that kind of thing because you can replace those wide receiver points in a cumulative scoring season-long contest. It's very tough in a solo week. Like if Hurts is winning you Best Ball Mania, guess who else is winning you Best Ball Mania? One of his, superstar wide receivers. On here, it's actually a little bit different.
Yeah, we're just looking for Quez. So this is where I'm fine with getting like
Zacchaeus.
Spike Week guys.
That's who it is. We also could take Zacchaeus on this team.
We could. I'm trying to see if any of the other stuff.
So what we should we
Can I wrap up the Dalvin Cook point real quick?
Yes. And then I just want to talk about like positionally what we want to do on this last team. I think I want to take a running back. So we'll do that.
Josh is saying that his biggest regret will be drafting Dalvin so much because I thought he was going to Miami. I'm glad that was like the one thing I was definitely going against the grain with is I just never thought he was going to Miami, and he still could go there. Like, I'll put that out there. That's still a possibility. But I thought when they invested the draft capital in A-Chain, they had Mostert and Wilson there. Like, if they could have got him cheap, maybe. And I never saw him going there. And the other thing with the Dalvin Cook, I'm going to bring it back to Breece Hall too. If the Jets were very concerned about Breece Hall, I don't think Dalvin Cook leaves New York without a contract. So that's another thing that I like about Breece Hall is that Dalvin Cook left there and wasn't signed. And I think it's because they were looking at him like a luxury, not a necessity. So,
he's definitely a luxury.
Yeah,
for sure. Based on now the information that we have, I think it was fair to say maybe he isn't before, but now this dude is like speaking into the mic. Can you hear this dog whining next to me? He walked up and was like basically putting his nose up to the microphone. But yeah, I mean, I think the good question from Josh and what's the camp reports with the football team? Also, we will forever call them the football team.
I might go back to it.
I like this. Has Sam Howell looked good? Yeah, Sam Howell's never stepped foot on the football field without looking good, so you don't have to worry about. You don't have to worry about that. No, but he actually has to being actually stone cold serious. By all reports, Howell's actually look really good. Actually, more than like looking good in camp. By like beat reporters, what I love about the reports from Howell is all his teammates and everything his teammates are saying. I actually find that to be more important than, if like you'll notice with Trey Lance, all of his teammates never said anything positive about Trey Lance. They said tons of positive things about Brock Purdy. Now, does that mean Brock Purdy is going to be an awesome player? No, but what it does mean is when George Kittle goes and talks to Kyle Shanahan, who is he going to endorse as the quarterback? Brock Purdy. And when Jahan Dotson and Terry McLaurin and these guys are raving about Howell in the media, and they don't have to do that. They could rave about Jacoby Brissett. It's their livelihoods, dude. If they want to make money, they need the quarterback that's feeding him, the ball the best. If they're raving about Sam Howell, they don't really have a lot of reason to like. If he's Zach Wilson, right, sucks ass. They have no reason to go out and say, he's QB1. He's a stud. You want it, Malik?
Yeah, Malik was the easy pick here. I think Malik is just so undervalued in every draft that he's in.
Right now in the PPR 20th round on drafters. I agree.
Because he has some standalone value opposite Pollard. I think he's going to get on the field somewhat.
He's going to get on the field, assuming they don't bring Zeke back or whatever. But
right. As of the moment, he's going to be on the field. And if something does, please don't let it happen. But if something were to happen to Pollard, then like sky's the limit, I think, for Malik Davis. Then they could still bring someone in and stuff like that. But Yeah, he was my pick.
Do you have any
there.
other? I think we definitely should take a running back. Do you have any other running back flyers that you like? I was going to toss out Kyron Williams. It could be
That's
Zach.
who I was actually going to say.
I don't really understand why Zach Evans is going ahead of Kyron Williams. To be totally honest, I mean, I know
I've been mixing. I was Zach Evans early, and I've just been kind of been mixing them. And,
I'm not saying don't draft Zach Evans because I do draft him sometimes, but I'm saying you want to talk about a guy who is not 100% owned on drafters, which is actually really, you get to the end, scroll down a little bit, like scroll down to the guys going in 10, 20, 30% of the drafts on drafters, because when Kyron Williams hits, you're really passing a lot of teams because there's not that many in front of you that have him. Now, is Kyron going to hit? Probably not. He runs a fucking 4.7 40. Like it's really not ideal. That's why he fell in the draft, blah, blah, blah. But also he's a good pass catcher. That's it. His best skill set is in the pass game. He's a good pass protector and a good pass catcher. And like, dude, the Rams could epically collapse this year. That is not a good roster. Yeah. That roster is really bad. Now they're really top heavy, right? Stafford, Kupp, Aaron Donald, whatever, but like it could go south quick, fast, and in a hurry. And you could be looking at Kyron as a really valuable guy, especially in PPR, like in the second half of the season. And we talked about, you don't necessarily want to reach for those second half of the season guys early, but in the 20th round, when he gets drafted in like 10% of leagues, I'm pretty in on Kyron, drafters specifically.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely in these 20 rounds. But that's why I like Malik Davis, because I think he should be getting drafted in the 18-round drafts. And
agreed.
And he's like become, and I actually don't think I've drafted him enough, to be completely honest. And
me either. I'm like,
something I need to be doing more of.
I think I have like 6 or 7% Malik Davis, and I feel like I should get a little higher. I actually have more Kyron. He's like my 18th round pick du jour. But all right, quickly, I'm going to run down this team, and then Gerardo. That's really embarrassing to have to say it out loud and mispronounce. But we'll run down your team. We'll sauce your team, and we'll run down our team really quickly. We drafted from the 101. Shout out to us. Getting the 101 always makes it a little bit easier, obviously, when you get the 101. But I do really like this team. I think drafting like a Jefferson, like anchor wide receiver team on drafters.
Team first, Erik. Jesus.
Sorry. We drafted, God damn it. And now I can't read it in like the draft order. We're going to run down this way. We drafted 2 quarterbacks, 7 running backs, 9 wide receivers, and 2 tight ends. Jalen Hurts and Kenny Pickett at quarterback. Rob didn't like the 0 RB, and the people don't like the 0 RB on drafters. But I think if you're going to draft it, my God, this is a sick running back room to do it. Dameon Pierce, J.K. Dobbins, Isaiah Pacheco, Eli Mitchell, Chase Brown, Evan Hall, and Kyron Williams. Kind of a little fun combination of some good early season guys with some home run swings. Justin Jefferson, Brandon Ayuk, Deontay Johnson, Rashad Bateman, Rashee Rice, Marvin Mims, Rashid Shaheed, Justin Ross, and Quez Watkins to stack with Jalen Hurts. Nobody's ever lost with the Jalen Hurts, Quez Watkins stack, let me tell you. Mark Andrews and Greg Dulcich at tight end. This is a fun team. This is 100% a fun team. Is there anything you like, hate, would change? What are your thoughts?
I do think that, like, I still don't like 0 RB on drafters, but we anchored this one properly. And I think when you have a guy like JK, I almost think that if you're doing any 0 RB on drafters, you have to have J.K. Dobbins.
Yeah.
Like it's almost a must.
Or whatever. Yeah.
It's almost a must, right? So anchoring him with Pierce, getting kind of this other stuff that we got. And the reason why we had to do it is because we anchored our onesie positions with Hurts and Andrews. So the other fun thing we did is we bet on Baltimore, we bet on Kansas City, and we bet on Denver without actually investing spots at the quarterback for them. So we're basically looking for a Baltimore and Kansas City player to hit our roster almost every single week, which is 2 offenses that, like, if you're like, you have to pick 2 offenses that have to hit your roster every week. Those are 2 out of probably the 5 teams I would throw out there.
I agree, especially with cost, especially at
That was
cost.
the other point.
It's easy to say Bengals, but Jamar Chase goes in the first, T. Higgins goes in the third, Joe Mixon goes in the, Joe Mixon and Burrow.
Fourth, fifth. Yep.
It's like, well, yeah, I could bet the Bengals, but I have to spend a top 4 or 5 round pick on them. There's a bunch of free Chiefs. There's a bunch of cheap, right? We just talked about Dobbins, Bateman, whatever. Yeah, I totally agree. Gerardo wants to be sauced. Okay. Picking out of the 110, I like it. Amon-Ra is interesting. You want to talk about creating, pulling up Amon-Ra and taking him with Devontae Adams? Both you and I, we don't need to get into the Raiders, but both you and I are, not big Raiders guys, but I understand why someone would draft Devontae Adams, certainly. I like that.
Already made the team garbage.
Christian
already made the team garbage.
Did you draft someone who plays with Jimmy Garoppolo, not in San Francisco? Congratulations. It's not going to go well. Side note, it is making me like a kid on Christmas morning reading every Jimmy Garoppolo negative tweet about how fucking awful he has been in training camp. It is glorious.
Dude, I'm arguing almost every day with people over the Raiders still on Twitter. I'm so sick of it. And this is the one thing. Like if I could choose one thing to dunk on, and sorry, Gerardo, I'll go over your team in a second. If I could pick one thing to dunk on people,
as I shit on your second round pick.
Well, wait till I shit on his third round pick. So the one thing I want to dunk on people for this year is the Raiders. Like I want to dunk on the Raiders so hard. So yeah, so Christian Watson, third round pick here. So you went Amon-Ra, Devontae Adams, who's going to have a terrible season because of the infrastructure that's going to crumble around him. Christian Watson, which feels like probably the worst priced guy on drafters, to be perfectly honest. Like he is not a drafters player. Getting him in the third round feels real bad.
I think his price on Underdog, it's fine. I think drafters he is one of those very different on here. And then they're like, it's a little overstated sometimes. The difference is, right, if you smash, you smash. It is what it is. But I think he is definitely one of those guys where it's like, he's a home run hitter in a run-heavy offense with a very sketchy quarterback. Like, that can be okay on Underdog, right? You can get the 4 for 102 game out of Christian Watson. And I do think I think he's probably a fun young player, but drafters is just a tough sell for me. In the late third, like you took Devontae Adams, but then passed on Josh Jacobs. Like, if you're gonna buy into the Raiders stuff, like just give me Jacobs, dude. Like I'll just make that bet on Jacobs and Devontae being awesome. Passed on Lamar. I prefer Judy to Christian Watson, and then it worked out fine, obviously, because you got Brees in the fourth, which we'll get to. But like, I just like Brees better than Christian Watson too.
Yeah, I would have preferred taking Brees. You would, I mean, if we're doing a 2v2 here and it ends up being a 1v1, but grabbing Brees Hall, pushing Watson down, and then getting like Amari Cooper or Terry McLaurin just feels way better there to me in the third. But to each their own. Hollywood Brown's a guy on a team that's going to score 4 touchdowns this year. Darren Waller seems fine. Montgomery, congratulations. He's going to have 40% of the work and 7 touchdowns. That's great. I do like A.J. Dillon. Daniel Jones and Jordan Love is a fun
I like
QB
Daniel
room.
Jones. And at least you stacked Watson. You made that bet. Look, if Christian Watson is going to be the winning third round pick on drafters, he's having a hell of a year, which means Jordan Love is probably pretty good and also having a big. It's not totally binary, but it's not far. It's not far away from being binary. So I do at least like that when you made that big bet on Christian Watson, given his crazy range of outcomes, you said, look, it's Packers time, baby. Jordan Love and Christian Watson, it's the new Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams.
Not only did he say it's Packers time, he really said it's Packers time because he went Christian Watson, A.J. Dillon, Jaden Reed, Jordan
Love.
It. Look, did you get Musgrave late? No.
We can, joke about our hate of the Raiders and our hate of Jordan Love. But if you're going to do it, I like how you did this with the Packers. I really do. Christian Watson got you Brees Hall, right? You were able to get Brees. with that wide receiver start. And we don't love Devontae and Christian Watson, but when you're gonna do it, I think Hollywood is actually probably the pick I have the most problem with. It feels like just forcing
Kyler.
Yeah. Oh, he did get Kyler. Okay. So again, I don't really like Hollywood, certainly not in the 5th round, but if you're going to do it, I think you did I think you got Trey McBride, right? You made good sound bets, Daniel Jones and Darren Waller. Did you get any no Giants wide receivers? But I mean,
I'm actually kind of okay with that. I grabbed Daniel Jones.
Waller nuke. The whole point is Waller's going to be the man, right?
Yeah.
This team is saying that. You made a good team, man. We're joking about the Raiders and Christian Watson and all that.
You told me to sauce it, so I was saucing it. You just wanted to be the good cop, is all this is.
I am being the good cop because I hate every single one of these fucking players except for Breece Hall. But you did a really good job. Like, it's a really well constructed team.
Well, he got the best player in the NFL. He got MVS, so that does bump the team up on the.
You went from 6 to midnight once we got down to MVS there.
I hate that he's getting more expensive, by the way. That sucks.
Yeah. How is Justin Watson starting and somehow MVS is the one getting boosted up? That's stupid. I will say, if we're saucing, can we talk about
Josh Palmer?
Can we talk about the end of this draft? Okay, let's just ignore Kyler Murray, even though he's probably going to play more Xbox than NFL games this year. Leonard Fournette, Josh Palmer, I do like Trey McBride, Tank Dell, and Kareem Hunt is how we're closing out this draft. Josh, did we forget that this isn't 20th round Josh Palmer? This is 17th round. What am I missing? Why are we drafting this Chargers QB or wide receiver? He could be the wide receiver 5 on this team. We don't even know that he's the wide receiver 4
on the Chargers. Erik was setting you up just to put the knife in your back at the end. That's what this was. It was so good. You did so good. You did so good all the way down to Kyler. Even though I don't like Kyler, I don't like the Raiders, I don't like Christian, I don't like any of these guys. But you constructed such an awesome team, and then. I don't know. I don't really get the Palmer thing. Tank Dell, whatever, is fine. I guess those running back free agents are fine. And Trey McBride, obviously, with Kyler is fine. I don't get Josh Palmer. There's no real rhyme or reason to him on this team either. It'd be one if you like we drafted Quez. Okay, we can't like shit too much on the shitty wide receivers, but like there's no rhyme or reason to Josh Palmer on this team. I just like that you just set him up so nicely just to tear him down at the end.
Well, anytime you can really get worked up over a 17th round pick, you gotta do it. As we drafted like Evan Hall or whatever.
Yeah, as you were like, can I please reach 4 rounds for Evan Hall? Can I do that, please? And I'm just like, Malik Davis is in there, but sure, go off, King.
As we're both like, can we no, my screen is blurry. Can we reach on our god awful last round picks? You are like, let's pull Quez up, let's pull Evan Hall up, let's pull all these horrible picks up early. Anything you want to sign us off with?
No, just a couple things. Tomorrow's show is going to be a lot of fun. We're going to be discussing ADP tomorrow and all the ins and outs of it. Do we think it's overvalued in drafts? What does ADP actually mean? Like, what is good ADP? Who's obviously miscast at ADP? We've gone over that a few times, right? So I'm excited for that particular show. It's one we've talked about doing for a few weeks. And I'm trying to talk Erik into doing our shots draft next week, where we construct what we're going to do. I think the way we do that, and I'll just throw this out there, we do one of the underdog friends and family $3 drafts, right? Where we just get a bunch of people from the Discord in there, and we maybe each draft the team. Why not? Why not each of us draft the team, and and every time something happens, we'll do a shot. If it's drafting a wide receiver, every time you want to draft a wide receiver, you have to do a shot.
Oh God. Yeah, I'm giving in to this shot show.
It's so the choices that the Discord gave us, where we could do shots or we could do a donut eating contest.
I would rather do the fucking shots, dude. I'm scarred from the food. I'm emotionally and physically both. And you know, everything. There's scars. The hot dog shit. I am scarred from the hot dog stuff. The hot sauce, actually, I think I would probably do the hot sauce again, which is really disgusting to say out loud because it sucked. It was I mean, it was brutal for hours afterwards. But I found it more enjoyable, or at least like it was funnier. It was like the torture was like something that seemed reasonable. The torture of shoveling hot dogs down your throat and buns, and like we were stupid about it, and I was dipping them in water like fucking Kobayashi, and like it was just really bad. But I'm totally down to do. I'm totally down to. I'm a Midwestern boy. We have pretty good alcohol tolerance. I think I can handle my wife won't like it. Let's just say, because the rest of the night I will be probably not her favorite person, but that's okay. We will definitely
have to be Monday night because I have a stream on Tuesday after the show, so I can't go. What do you think about those ghosts, huh, guys?
I would probably pay to see you after 10 shots or whatever talk about some ghosts. That would be great. But yeah, as Rob said, I'm also excited for tomorrow. We're going to talk through just like what the hell does ADP mean? Like, when does it matter? When does it not matter? How do we attack it? Like, clearly it's something that matters. Discord should assign shot values to certain players. Please, God, no. Sam Howell will be like 6 shots or something, and I'll be wanting to take him. But awesome comment. We will be back tomorrow. And boy, if you want draft content, if you want all sorts of hot takes and everything heading up into the season, we got you covered here. So be on the lookout for recorded videos and of course live streams. And tomorrow I'll make sure to post the latest legendary sickos with myself and Pat Crane. But for myself and for Rob and for all the damn dogs running around both of our houses, we'll see you guys tomorrow.
Woo! Those were some spicy takes. Want to stay up to date with all of the other spicy takes we're going to have over here at Spike Week? Why don't you press that subscribe button below? You turn notifications on, we draft a team, boom, you know about it. We have another spicy take, boom, you know about it. You can be there, you can draft with us. You want to stay up to date? That's how you do it. All right, we'll catch you later next time here at Spike Week.